Can your average car enthusiast in the garage, such as myself, weld up an open differential with an inexpensive $180 Amazon welder, so that way we don't have a one tire fryer? So I'm going to walk you through all the steps on how to weld up an open differential, turning it into a locker, basically a spool, and some of the tips and tricks that I have learned to make sure your freshly welded up open diff doesn't come apart. Welcome to the channel. If you're new, I'm Matt. On the bench here, we have two different styles of differential. We have an open diff, and then we have a locker here. You might say, why not throw this locker in? Well, we're switching to a front wheel, all-wheel drive conversion on our Chevy Cruze here. In order to do that, we need this piece right here to turn our transfer case, which will turn our differential here, spinning the rear wheels. And the way the all-wheel drive differential was built, we've got this piece that comes off of the differential itself and splines into the transfer case. So we're going to have to weld up our open differential. Let's go ahead and remove this ring gear, and I'll show you some tips and tricks on how to weld this up and make it nice and strong. And the reason we're going to remove this ring gear or crown gear is because as we weld this thing up, we're going to use a MIG welder. If slag gets on a ring gear, it'll be just about impossible to completely smooth it out without completely messing up the machining on it. So let's go ahead and remove this ring gear. So let's go ahead and remove these bolts that hold on the ring gear. Before we start throwing sparks with the budget MIG welder, let's break down how an open differential actually works. Inside most cars, you've got a set of spider gears that let each wheel spin at different speeds, especially when you're turning. One tire moves farther than the other, so it has to spin faster. That's great for daily driving, but if one tire loses traction, that's where an open differential falls short. It sends power to the wheel with the least grip. That's why a lot of folks weld them up. By fusing those spider gears together, you're forcing both wheels to spin at the same speed. That means better traction when both tires bite, but also some sketchy street manners and tire chirping around the corners. So now that we understand how it works, let's see if a cheap ass MIG welder from Amazon can actually get the job done in a home garage. So we'll hit this thing with some brake clean the best that we can, and hopes we can get all the differential grease out of there. What the heck? We'll pull this thing apart. Now that we have this thing completely back together, I'm going to take some measurements. We're going to make some plates to go on both sides. If you have a differential that requires you to put C-clips in order to retain your axle shafts, you'll only want to do this on one side. So that way you can put your retaining C-clips in so your axles don't come out. So I need to cut a couple plates that are 1 inch by 1.5 inches. So let's go ahead and do that. We got a couple plates made up that are a tick under 1/8 inch, and I put a little bit of a curvature in them so that way we have a better chance of not getting in the way of the splined areas. And these will drop right down into our differential just like so. We can make all this one piece, our spider gears along with our side gears, effectively making this completely locked just like a spool. So now I'm going to take some MAP gas. The reason being for MAP is that it burns a lot hotter than propane. Pretty cheap setup. Nozzle gas was about 40 bucks at Home Depot. So let's get it heating, shall we? It is the next day. We gave the differential some time to gradually cool down, but let me show you the results and what we're going to do next. It's really hard to tell what the welds look like right this moment because we need to clean up all the slag and little BBs inside of there. However, you can tell this differential got plenty hot. We got some shades of purple, blue, even a dark blue, which means it was well into the 530 to 550 range, which is a lot like hardening. Don't quote me on this, which should make this differential stronger overall, not only with plating and welding this thing up, just because we got this thing up to a pretty high temp. So I'm going to use some carb cleaner and my brush. I'm going to scrub this thing really good, and then we'll take a look at the welds and we'll see how well this Amazon welder over here did. I was a little skeptical, but after welding with this thing, I'm really happy with the results. So let's get to cleaning. Brake cleaner really does make some latex gloves fall apart pretty quick. Here are our welds. I welded each corner of the spider gears to the side gears. Certainly not the prettiest welds, but I've been welding as a hobbyist since I was a teenager in shop class.
I mean, if you had to put a number on it, I guess that'd be
44.
Fuck.
Golly, where'd the time go? But we kept the pool nice and hot. You can really see, even up in here where I welded the spider gear to the casting, how we really just burnt this thing in really well. With this being 1/8 inch steel, I kept a majority of my penetration at the spider gears, and I would just kind of dip in to this 1/8 inch plate. So we welded that all the way around, all 4 corners. We welded the spider gears to the housing itself. Here is the other side. We welded all the way around. Let me switch to my iPhone camera here. I think we'll be able to get some better detail. You can see how much we cut into those spider gears here. And even as I was welding the plate here, we really, like, this big chunk here is just burning into these spider gears. Welded this corner up here, this big loop-de-loop right here, followed by the weld on top to tie in the plate. Trying not to punch through this plate in order to not burn through and get down into our spline area. Here's our little tie-in right there on the other spider gear. Weld this corner up. Once you start getting pretty deep in there, you pretty much kind of felt like filling this in. Let's turn this back around, use our camera here on the phone. Got this nice and tied into the spider gears. Welded the spider gears to the housing. I didn't really feel the need to weld these side gears into there because we have everything all nice and tied in. And we got each of these corners all welded up. If I were to do this again, I'd probably stick some axles in there or find some spares. This axle here that is our intermediate shaft did come all the way from the UK, so it makes it harder to find these parts and risk ruining this particular piece. Having said that, we did a pretty good job of not encroaching on our splines. I can still jam my axles in with no problem. Try and do this one-handed. There we go. Our axle is completely seated. So can you do this in the garage at a hobbyist level like myself with an inexpensive $180 Amazon welder? Yes, the thing I would do a little differently, kind of like I mentioned just a moment ago, is to get some spare axles if possible to push those in there so that way you're not encroaching on those splines. I guess you'll have to stick around and see how this works out, how it holds up. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And boys and girls, peace out. Peace out.